Hey guys, so I had an interesting project last weekend. My daily WJ had some rust on it that I wanted to fix before the winter, and I'd never really done that before. I'm not really a body guy, but after some research and some trial and error, I did find a really easy way to fix rust, inexpensively and I think effectively. And while I was at it, I decided to paint the whole Jeep. So what I want to do is show you guys what my process was to fix the rust, to Bondo some other little dents, and ultimately to paint my entire Jeep with rattle cans for like 60 bucks. Yeah, like 60 bucks. So the filming in this video is a little bit disjointed, not as fluent or as complete as I would have liked it to be, but I was more focused on the project than filming. So stick with me if you want to know how to fix rust, how to Bondo dents, and paint your entire vehicle with rattle cans and have it come out looking pretty good. Stick with me till the end. I promise to explain everything, everything you'll need, everything you'll have to do, and you know, how to get it really good. Yeah, so let's dive into it.
Alright, so as you can see, I've already started knocking the rust and old Bondo away. That's what you're looking at there. The previous owner got a big dent in the side of this Jeep. Rather than fixing it properly, they just sort of packed the dent with Bondo and the metal failed behind it. If there's any rust trapped in a repair, be it under paint or under Bondo, it's just going to continue to fester and it will rot from the inside out, and that's what you're looking at here. So this first night I was taking the angle grinder with a flap wheel on it. I think it was a 100 grit flap wheel or an 80 grit flap wheel, and just breaking off the rust and the old Bondo and the paint. The goal was to get to clean metal and cut out as much rot as possible. You see a lot of speckling of rust down the door jamb a little lower. I wasn't able to get all of that rust out, so I got out what I could, and then I hit it with Rustoleum rust reformer, which I've had pretty good success with. It's one of the few products you can put on rust and have the rust not grow too quickly. If you put normal paint over rust, it just immediately starts to exacerbate the issue. As you can see, the hole is just opening up more and more as I'm working, and that actually led to me doing an interesting thing to repair it. I didn't just use Bondo. I didn't choose to weld in a patch panel. What I did was remove as much rust and rot as possible, and then I built a little cradle with masking tape and filled that hole with great stuff, which is, if you don't know, it's expanding foam insulation that people use in their homes. You spray it on, and as it's curing, it expands, I don't know, something crazy like 10 times or 20 times, and it fills in all the crevices and it dries pretty hard. So you'll see more of that later, but I sprayed rust reformer down before I put that stuff in, and I'm confident that it's going to be a good repair. I'll get to that more in a little bit. Preparation is key when you're doing a paint project like this. I firmly believe that painting is 95% preparation and 5% application, more so even than the quality of paint. If you don't do a good job prepping, be it removing rust or scuffing up the surface or taping or priming, you're not going to get a good product. Point blank. You can have the best paint and expensive sprayers. If you don't take the time to prep, it's not going to come out looking good. What you're looking at here is actually, that's the great stuff, you know. I got all the rust out I could. I sprayed the rust reformer down. That's the black that you're seeing. And I sprayed it in there. I'm now shaping it. My goal is to get it shaped and then have the actual surface be a little bit below the surface of the metal so that I can put Bondo in there. It worked really well, and I am confident it's going to do a good job. If you go this direction, you have to make sure you seal all sides of the great stuff, because great stuff is like a sponge for water, and obviously that'll just lead to more rust. So I'm just shaping it with sandpaper. Actually, you can see I just took a big chunk out of it, which came back to haunt me later. It made Bondo a little more difficult. I should have been more careful there. You can see there was 2 holes there. The lower one ended up coming out better. The rest of the Jeep had lots of little dents and little places where it was rusting. Not as bad as the other spot. It wasn't rot yet, but I figured I would address that, you know, since I'm painting the whole Jeep anyway. I'm just hitting everything with a die grinder with a coarse Scotch pad on it, knocking the paint off, knocking the rust off, obviously, getting it prepped for Bondo. The prep on this Jeep took about 14 hours. And I could have done twice as much prep, honestly. You know, I just kind of got bored of sanding, which is really not the right direction to go. But you see here I'm using mineral spirits. I used a lot of that through this project and most painting projects. It's great for getting tar and wax off. You can't paint over car wax. You can't paint over road tar or oily residue. So wiping everything down, same thing with Bondo. You can't put Bondo over it. So using something like mineral spirits is really great on a project like this to make sure you're getting a clean work surface. Here I am applying the Bondo. Those two dents, I feel like every WJ gets dents in that back hatch. I don't know if it's because like a big open area or what. I don't know if you guys also experience that, but fixing those with Bondo. My experience with Bondo is limited, mostly just fixing motorcycle tanks with little dents, so this was a big project. The key to Bondo is light coats, wait for it to dry, sand it, do another light coat, wait for it to dry, sand it. If you try to fill a hole completely the first time, you're going to end up with a mess on your hands. And I knew that going in, but I definitely learned that more through the course of this project. Another thing about Bondo is you really want to save yourself work on sanding by putting it where you need it the first time. It's so tempting to just glob it on and say, oh, I'll just shape it in sanding, but Bondo dries really hard, a lot harder than like plaster or than it might look. I guess that's why it's a good body filler. So do yourself a favor and put it where you want it. Make sure you wipe it off. Even like you can see the residue around that one hole on the right. It was a pain to like sand that little bit of residue off when I could have just wiped it off with more mineral spirits or something. Because sanding it is kind of a nightmare. It's not a nightmare, it takes a long time. If you're going to tackle a project like this, go out and get yourself a lot of sandpaper. I don't care how careful you are, you're going to need a lot of it. For this, I used everything from 80 up to 220. I used a whole lot of 220 and a whole lot of 150. And I'll get into that a little more in a little bit. Alright, so here I am bondoing over the great stuff. This is kind of where it got a little messy. Between the curves and that big chunk that I had taken out, I kind of made a mess of this. Doing the best I can, learned a lot about Bondo and about the process here. I definitely think I could do a better job going forward. It's not as easy as it looks, Bondo. You know, when you're contemplating a project like this, it seems kind of easy and fun. So if any of you out there are body guys, I apologize for what you're witnessing here. I'm sure this must be difficult to watch, but know that I am aware of how awful I did. The end product wasn't terrible, though. It was passable. I did leave myself way more sanding than I needed to on this spot. I had to bring in a Dremel to kind of shape it. It was... I could have done more prep. I guess it's the same thing with Bondo as paint. You know, if I had prepped this spot a little better, as far as shaping things and been more careful to not take that chunk out, I think that would have gone a lot smoother. The one thing I definitely did right, I'm confident that all the rust is out. I can't stress enough, before you lay down fresh paint on a vehicle, make sure you're not putting it over rust. What you're seeing there is an 80 grit, I think, or 60 grit sanding sponge. Such a great tool for contoured areas or hard to reach areas. It made it really easy. You can see there's two holes, the big one and then a lower one. The lower one came out great, and that sponge is one of the reasons why. It contours really well and helps you. You can see I kind of just left so much extra Bondo all over the place. That blue sandpaper I'm using is really great. It's actually like a cloth sandpaper. I find it's a little difficult to find. I can't find it at Lowe's or Home Depot. Sometimes I find it at Tractor Supply. I always forget to look at Harbor Freight. If you can find that, especially in the lower grits, like if you were going to buy an 80 grit or 100 grit sandpaper, buy it in the cloth. It's more expensive, obviously, but it lasts so much longer and it's so much more durable. It's not going to rip. It's great for anything on metal, really. You can see here I brought in the palm sander to make the project go a little quicker. My sander was actually dying the whole time I was doing this. It's just old. It's time to get a new one, so it didn't really help all that much. I think I'm going to get a random orbital sander next time instead of the square vibrating palm sander. I think they work better for this kind of application. You can see I brought the Dremel in to try to shape it. This process was ugly, I admit, but the end result wasn't too terrible. I think I just doubled the amount of work. You know, thin layers of Bondo, just let it dry. Just put a thin layer, let it dry, sand it a little. I was too ambitious with the Bondo here. I tried to glob it all on at once, kind of get it done in one shot, and ended up making way more work for myself. Like I said, Bondo just takes forever to sand. Again, I'm sure body guys are laughing at me right now, like, duh. But I didn't know. Never really done a project like this. Like I said, motorcycles with little dents in the gas tanks, what I've used Bondo for before, and that fills pretty easily compared to this large gaping hole in the side of my Jeep. Yeah, here's the hood. The hood came out great. I mean, I know it's an easy area because it's just flat, but it was really gratifying. There were a bunch of little dents and little spots that were rusting, and I was able to fill them and get a nice smooth coat. That red sandpaper there is Diablo 220 sandpaper. It's a little expensive. I think it lasts a little bit longer, which on this project was great because I went through a ton of sandpaper. And the 220 was perfect for sanding the Bondo. It cut through it without leaving big gouges. I was able to smooth and kind of feather it into the remaining metal for a seamless finish. Even on like this, you can see right there is sort of the bevel or whatever in the hood there. You can kind of get an idea for it here, like that's not a thick bit of Bondo right there, but it just took a long time to sand. I ended up putting on, I think that I start using the blue sandpaper a little bit here, the 100 grit, to kind of cut through it, and then finish it with 220. That's probably what I would suggest you do. Just to recap, get all your rust out, clean everything with mineral spirits, apply your Bondo in thin coats, sanding in between, and this is a totally doable project to fix minor rust. I submit that even if you had like a pickup, the rear fenders on pickups always disappear with rust. I think this would even work for that. Tape off a little section, make a little cradle, and fill it up with this great stuff. We will see if it works long term. There's some other people on the internet doing it. That's kind of where I got the idea. I didn't see anybody doing like a 1 year later video, which is something I intend to do. But I think if you seal it, it should work out fine. Another thing to mention, I didn't prime this whole vehicle before I painted it. But what I did do was prime any spot with Bondo with Rustoleum primer, the 2-in-1 filler sandable primer. I'm going to put links to all the products I use down in the description. I don't have a shot with any of the cans in it, but I will leave links down below. I'm not saying this is the best stuff to use. It's actually pretty much the cheapest, but it worked really well. I spent like $60 on paint and supplies. I did have a lot, like I had the tape and everything, but still. Speaking of tape, here I am taping off the vehicle. It's such an important step. It's not glamorous, it kind of sucks. It's not fun, it's tedious, and your fingers start to hurt from the tape after a while, and it's just boring. And it's kind of high stress because you know that any little spot you miss is potentially going to have a very large impact on your end result, this product that you've been working on for hours and hours at this point. Yeah, so here's my tip for taping. Make sure you have all your supplies ready, get everything together, and you got to really make sure you're in the right mind state. I recommend you get some good music. For this whole project, I listened to Johnny Cash and the Highwaymen. When it comes to meticulous work, it's got to be old country. If you're fabricating, go ahead, put on some metal, some metallic in there, but if you're doing something meticulous and calm and concentrated, you're going to want some old country, maybe a little Hank too. Definitely some Johnny Cash, I always recommend it. What you're seeing there, like I said, didn't prime the vehicle, but what I did do is scuff the entire vehicle with 150 grit sandpaper and a green Scotch pad. The green Scotch pad was for hard to reach areas like the contours in the door. It's what you're seeing right now. If you try to put Rustoleum paint right over your gloss coat without scuffing it up, it's not going to look as good, and it definitely won't be as durable. It takes a long time, it really does, to make sure that every inch of that is scuffed up, but you will get a better product if you go that direction. Here I am getting ready to paint. Light coats. I can't stress it enough. If number one from this video, if you only take away one thing, take away preparation. If you take away two things, take away preparation and light coats. I could have done this Jeep in 3 coats. I did it in 5. And I think that I have a better, more durable, even finish because of it. First coat, you don't even have to cover the whole thing. See, it's just getting some paint on there. You know, I know it's streaky. The next one will be a little better. The third one will be a little better. And by the time you have 5 light coats down, you'll have an even, you know, well-adhered paint layer on your vehicle. This is going to wrap up the footage that I have. I got to wrap some more information at the end of the video, so do stay on. But I'll leave links in the description to all the products I used.
Alrighty, y'all ready to see the final product? Took about 15 hours of work from start to finish. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good for my first time rattle canning an entire vehicle. I give you the daily disaster. Yeah, so as you can see, went for a 2-tone. Top is like an olive drab, bottom is like a sand tan. Chose to go same color as the bumper and cladding with the on the grill. And the only thing I still have to do are the rims. I can't decide. I'm thinking black. Originally I was thinking tan, but that might be too much tan. It'll definitely be difficult to keep clean. So black rims to come. Imagine it with black rims. Anyway, let's do a quick walk around, show you what worked. We'll try to show you what didn't exactly work. Alrighty, let me preface this by saying that I've actually been driving this Jeep all week. Because I just haven't had a chance to do this wrap-up video yet. So like right here, there's like some bugs already splattered on it and some dirt. So keep that in mind. One of the things I am really happy with though is how the front of the hood came out. I don't know if you can tell, but in my opinion it's just about flawless. I had to do a bunch of Bondo there. There was a lot of dents, a lot of little rust spots. You might remember I was really going to town with the sander, but it's smooth. You can't really tell it was Bondo. The paint is even. I did prime all the Bondo first. I'm also really happy with the rest of the hood. I don't know if you can tell, there's probably a glare out here. Oh, actually the hood, the rest of the hood is a double-edged sword. I'm happy with the way the Bondo came out. Unfortunately, the angle I was painting at caused me to get this uneven, streaky look. You can see some spots are darker, some spots have some sheen. So what I'm going to do is take this hood off and paint it vertically. And I believe that that will fix this uneven look, because the rest of the Jeep does not have that uneven look. Let's get on to the rest of the Jeep. Alrighty, right here is one of the spots I could be happier with. I just don't think I put enough time into the Bondo there, and it was at the end of the day. I was kind of tired of sanding. I think another layer or two and I would have been able to really keep this line here uninterrupted, and it would have looked a lot better. What I am absolutely happy with is the color choice and the way most of the Jeep looks. I mean, in my opinion, that's clean right there. I made the choice to paint over a lot of the decals. This Grand Cherokee logo is like silver, and that would have come off if I'd wanted to debadge it there. I chose not to, chose to paint over it. I like it. I think it looks really good. The paint is really very even over most of the Jeep. It's like the hood is really the only spot where I'm experiencing that. So I am happy about that. Flat is way easier to paint with than gloss. If you're going to try to gloss paint out of rattle cans, you better be ready to do a lot of wet sanding, and I was not at all. don't know if you remember the back here, there was a pretty good sized dent in this general area. I mean, you really can't see that at all, and I am very happy about that. It's the same story on the other side. On the other side of this rear hatch, right where this molding is, there was another big dent, and those came out great. And what it comes down to is I put more time in on those. More layers of Bondo, more sanding. So patience is the key, you know? That's all there is to it. All right, now right here is the spot that was the catalyst for this whole project, and I have very mixed thoughts on it. Did I stop the rust? Yes, I am very confident that I was able to stop the rust here. I cut out the rusting metal and the rotting metal. I got down to clean metal. I dressed that properly. I wish that, first of all, you can see a line here between the repair and the fix, and I really don't like that, and I think in the future that could end up being a problem. So you know, as far as a spot that it may rust from, I will probably go back and give this area more attention. I think it could be sanded down, and I think another couple layers of Bondo and sanding, I could get this a little cleaner. But considering the size of the hole, I mean, I'm really happy with the way it came out. It would have been several $100s to have somebody fix it, and this just isn't that vehicle, you know? This is my daily. I put about 30,000-40,000 miles on it a year. You know, it doesn't make sense to invest a lot into it. So considering I fixed this for about 30 bucks, yeah, I'm happy with it. You can see down here it looks a little rough. I still need to get a piece of cladding. You can see I didn't bother fixing this dent. There's a little strip of cladding that goes here. I'm just gonna go to the junkyard and find one, and that'll go on, and it'll hide this dent. The rust is taken out of the dent, so it shouldn't be a problem. This, it looks like rust. I think it's actually a bird got the Jeep somehow right there. I was looking at it before I came out, and I was like, is that already rusting? It's not. Somehow that's bird stuff, so that's fun. Alrighty, here's something I realized while I was going through this process. My door sills are rotting. You can see this is like bulging and peels up, and it's bubbling there. That's not integral to the door. They sort of just slide on, so I will be going to the junkyard this weekend. Only my back two door sills are rotting out, this one and the one on the other side. My fronts look good, so 2 new door sills. I can't imagine that's more than 10 bucks. Another thing you may notice is I chose to paint the door handles. That wasn't my initial intention. I started taping them off, and because of the type of plastic and the shape, I wasn't confident that I would get a clean tape job there. And I figured painting them the same color as the Jeep is going to look better than possibly having overspray on them. Also, if I really hate them, I think they're about $5 a piece at the junkyard, but I like it. I think it's a good look. I also painted, I don't know if you can tell, the center of the roof rail is the same color green. I kept just enough black accents. You know, again, not a show Jeep, but I am just trying to have fun with it. Got to drive it every day. Here's another project that's going to be coming up. Now this is Rustoleum paint. It is a good quality paint, but it's not automotive paint, and there's no protective coat on it. If I get gas on this, forget about it. It's going to melt right off. So I think this weekend I'm going to try to make a plate to go below gas door and everything. Maybe diamond plate or just aluminum, just something I can rivet on with some RTV behind it to kind of keep the gas off of that. I'll probably have to make it in an L shape to go on a bit of the bumper as well. I don't know, but that's definitely gonna have to be addressed, because as soon as gas starts getting on there, that's gonna melt away, and it's gonna look real bad real quick. I mean, I know the lights, I'm losing the light a little bit here, but I'm gonna keep going with the video anyway. To sum it up, this whole job costs less than $100. That includes the supplies to Bondo, the supplies to sand, and the supplies to paint, including tape and all that. I had the tools. If I'd had to go and buy, I also had a lot of the sandpaper. Even if you had to go and buy a couple tools, i.e. Random orbital sander, palm sander, I used that die grinder, but that wasn't necessary. It just kind of made it a little quicker. I can't see this whole job taking more than 150 bucks. So if you have a vehicle with a little bit of rust, there's no reason you can't fix it and maybe paint the whole vehicle, you know, for like $100. And why wouldn't you? You know, I wouldn't do this on a new car. You know, my wife, even my wife's, it's 2006. She has a couple little rust dimples. Believe me, her Jeep is not getting this treatment. It's way too nice for that. But this thing, almost 20 years old, over 200,000 miles. The options were let it rust away, fix it and drive around, you know, with Bondo spots all over it, or do this. So, listen, I know this video was a little different than the usual ones. I hope you're able to follow along. I hope I was able to answer some questions, maybe inspire you a little bit. At the very least, show you that it is possible. I mean, this is decent, you know. I mean, maybe I'm not being hard enough on myself, but I think it's a pretty decent paint job, and I'm satisfied with the way it came out. So by all means, leave me a comment, leave me a question. I'll do my best to get back to you. Please hit the subscribe button on the channel. We're going to keep bringing out new videos, and you're not going to want to miss out. Anyway, I look forward to hearing your feedback on this project, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, guys.